Okay, now I'm recording, and now we're gonna begin. Okay, Sanjay, I'm gonna screen share. And then, here we go.
Yeah. So if you click, it's on clicks so that I get time to sort of speak and all that. Okay.
There we go.
So I was wondering what title should I give. So I have a small balcony in my house, and whatever I saw from there, and stuff like that. Of course, the sky is big, so when you look out of your balcony, it's not a very limited view. It's a big view, and yeah, because at that time the message was also stay safe, stay home. Of course, it has its own own connotations, but that's how we were stuck in the balcony. So can you go next? Just click and it'll go. Yeah, go click. Yeah, okay. So just for context, I said I'll show you what this country looks like, and if you click again, yeah, this is where I am. This state of Gujarat on the west coast, and I stay in a city called Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is after the king Ahmed who came here. So Bad means after. So Ahmed ke Bad. So after Ahmed, they named the city as Ahmedabad in 1427. And my parents are from a different state, that is Maharashtra, just below. And my father was transferred here in 64, and he liked the state, he liked the place, and then he stayed back. So we also all stayed back. But at home we speak a different language, but we all speak 4 languages. So that is the advantage of coming from a different state. So yeah, can we go ahead? So I'll quickly tell you where we are. So I work with Shanti Life. Shanti Life is basically a no profit, no loss company. And I've been in the sector working with vulnerable women and men and children since 1984. And this is what I liked, and this is what I do. And in between, somebody taught us about media, and one of the things that they taught us was puppetry. And since '86, I've been teaching people, children, women, how to use puppets in their own daily life and work. So basically, what we do is we improve the quality of life of vulnerable women and men in the rural area. That's our focus. So if you go quickly, I'll just. We use micro loans, because I believe that giving anything free doesn't really have much value, but we do micro loans at a very low interest. We do a lot of financial literacy and hygiene education. Our loans range from this amount, so it is like $208 to $700. I mean, that's the group that I work with. We all try and do it through the banks, basically because we want to also build a credit history for the women. Since they don't have any credit history, they don't get bigger loans, and even if they have the ability to pay, but they don't have any history to show. And we sort of it's an ease of payment. So many a times women get stuck with the child is sick, they don't have money, or the husband is sick, or the husband has stolen the money, or there are so many things. So we try and accommodate all that, and we know that a 12-month the loan will not get over in 12 months. It will always take 15 to 18 months. So we know that, and we give that. It's like also a secret respect for the women. It's like positive prejudice, if you want to call it. That's how we call it. Yeah, can we go next? Through my field visits, we plan new ideas with the women and men, and then that's how we keep focusing on. So currently we are into asset building. So I'll talk about that later on, because that's also part of the pandemic. Yeah, so we work with, so we have self-help groups here, which women have formed groups of 10 to 12, 15, and then, they have their internal money. So you can show, so we work with fisher women. We work with women who want to buy goats or cows or buffaloes. And we also work with, artisans. These are weavers who hand make silk saris, stoles, and scarves and all that. This is the group that we normally work with. Yeah. In terms of really loans and all that, I've done this in dollars just for a context. So this is a typical village meeting that we would have with women, and sort of we're discussing newer ideas and all that. So this is the amount that has been done in loans since 2015, and this is what has been repaid. All the repaid amount has always gone back to loans. So it's not like we fixed with this just the loans. Yeah. Yeah, the pandemic. So till November, December 2019, even till Jan, Feb 2020, the virus was there in China, sort of on the horizon, but no one was bothered here in India, to be very honest. We also had this Namaste Trump happening in my city on February 24, 2020. They tried to gather a huge crowd and they hit slums and, all that nonsense had happened. Till March 20, I'm honestly telling you, till March 20, things were normal simply because we were all doing our jobs, we were all going busy with our work, and I'd gone to the office also. And then till that time, there's no inkling of what was going to happen. Yeah. So on March 24th, they started putting a lockdown. This is a 1.3 billion population country. It's not easy to really. It's really harsh to have the kind of lockdown we had, and it went on for four phases. We had lockdowns from 24th till for 75 days, and it's madness. I mean, if to be very honest, that was the phase where it started with the lockdown started when the cases were just 500, and by the end of the lockdown we were already 1.9 million. I don't know what the current figure is because it's pointless to even look at that figure. But sadly, yeah, that is how we were. Yeah. I would like to say that the lockdown was really, really stringent. So I would say that it was more of a curfew rather than a lockdown. So more than the virus, I feel that lack of money, hunger, loss of jobs, fear of the quarantine and treatment were very prominent. Even quarantine, like in my colony, there were 2 cases which just happened, and the way they were treated as if they were criminals, and they were locked up in their houses, and they had to call up for help, for even for food and all that. I mean, it was really uh, inhuman, if I have to put it in a very mild term. It was very inhuman. Yeah. And typically the poor, especially the daily earners and migrants, were hit the hardest. Now in a city like Ahmedabad, where you have a population of more than 9 million, these migrants are all hidden. I mean, nobody, they really don't have a face. They're all there. They come to work at people's houses. You have them at the construction sites. You have them at all possible industries and all that, but they are always hidden. uh, the message that time was stay safe, stay home. I mean, how many people really had homes was something that I was wondering. It was very easy. I remember on this internet and on these WhatsApp groups, this thing was floated that we are all in the same storm. Yeah, we are all in the same storm, but we all have different boats. Somebody have yachts and somebody have just straws, and these are the people who only didn't even have straws. And that really saddened and hurt, that if leaders really bring in this kind of lockdowns, uh, why don't they really bother about these people? And that's a big question here. What happened was, these migrants basically depend on money that comes in every day. So at the end of the day, if 3 from the family is working, they get around, say, 10 or $12. Now, don't look at it from a dollar point of view. Even in rupees, it is 700 rupees. So they would buy stuff, every day, like say oil, flour, salt, some vegetables, cook in the night and eat. And next day again, they'll go back to work. So they'll keep some for the next day, afternoon, and again in the evening. So this cycle goes on and on and on. And that's how they live. They come here to the urban areas basically because in rural areas, the problem is twofold. One is most of the schemes don't operate. Second thing is the land holdings have gone so low that nothing, they can really not produce. So the best is to come to an urban area and find work. But what happened was the urban areas really sort of, made them destitute. There's a mass exodus. I mean, we have not, people say that, when India and Pakistan partitioned, there was a mass exodus, but this was much more worse. If you see the next slides, you'll see the pictures. Can you imagine because of the lockdown, everything was closed. The trains were not working, the buses were not working, the trucks were not working, nothing was working. And can you imagine somebody sitting in a city like, say, Ahmedabad, decides to go to a city, a far off state, walking 1,000 kilometers? I mean, where does that, faith come in? I really had, I was devastated by the way things had folded at that time. So if you really see, I mean, these are like, typical men walking home. But if you move ahead, um, I mean, families with their little belongings were going back home, walking. And it's not that, because they were walking, there was food available or nothing was operational. I mean, it was like you're thrown in a desert where, if you have something to eat, fine. Otherwise, people survived on these, small biscuits and water. I mean, that's all. Or some people, and many died on this process. If you really see, look at the kid here on the right side of the frame. I'm not trying to deride my country. I love my country. I have never ever tried to, sort of migrate from this country. But these are very painful visuals, if you really see. And I've not yet come out of it. I mean, this has really depressed me. This has devastated me, and I really don't know what little. Even if I had any little faith in God, that is all lost. It is all lost at this moment. And I just don't believe in him or her or whoever it is. And I just feel that, I mean, the powers be are just twiddling their thumbs, at this moment in time. So there was a lot of criticism on this. And so they started these trains, but these were paid trains. So can you imagine somebody who has no work, no money, but has to pay for a train? I don't know how they managed it. Of course, there was a lot of corruption in this. But this was again the other sad part of the whole thing. Yeah. But the most interesting part was not the rich, but people who could really not afford, like say middle class or lower middle class, were the ones who really came forward with a lot of innovative ideas. Like we had this. In our colony, we had a roti bank. Roti is like a bread that you sort of roast, and we eat it every day. So people who could afford, they would make 5 rotis per house. So in a colony like mine, which we are 600 families, that's a huge number, which then somebody would go and distribute, and then what the whole pressure was on us as to what we could do. So we said that, I had a police picket just outside my house. So there was no question of me moving out or anything like that. But once the lockdowns were eased a bit, I started visiting again. And we would discuss with women. So one of the ideas that came up with was, starting grain banks. So again, we didn't do it free. We gave women 0 interest loans of 10,000 rupees. That's around, say, I don't know about dollars, but 10,000 rupees, which is a good amount. And collectively, 5 women would, sort of buy grains. So at least, because that time there was no surety as to what is going to happen with these lockdowns. Are they going to come back? Are they going to revisit us? And the women didn't want them, to go hungry. We also found out that, in the villages, women had taken care of the daily earners. So even in villages, you have daily earners, but the women had taken care of them by, feeding them. Mostly it is food that was important. And this is what we started as one of the things. And the second thing that we started was, providing loans to build assets. So we realized that unless and until we build assets for these women, it's not going to work out. So these smaller loans and all that are not going to work out. So we started doing bigger loans. Yeah, can we go ahead? In terms of puppetry, what I did was, many organizations that I work with as my partners, they wanted to, because the schools were closed and kids, for children, the school, even if it is not teaching them anything, but it is one way of going away from home and maybe escape a lot of work from home and all that. So we started doing these workshops. We just did one or two puppets with them, but I said, so they wanted me to do puppet shows. I said, no, I mean, I'm not interested in puppet shows because the kids will be still sitting there, and I'll be very happy doing the show. But let's do something where the kids are involved and they do something and take something home, and keep playing with it. And we did this 2 3, we did a bird and we did a bug and stuff like that. I should give credit to, I think, Chad Williams, who was doing these. Every day he would put up a puppet, how to make a puppet, and I was always interested. So I'd also, during the lockdown, I had nothing else to do, so I would sort of make one for myself, and that's how I transferred this to the kids. They really enjoyed being involved in it, and doing and drawing and playing with it and taking one home. So we did a series of workshops in September, October, November, with a lot of children. Of course, this was all with the risk, because schools were there was a restriction on how many people can sort of gather and all that. But in remote villages, nobody anyway, the officers don't visit, so we were not very worried about anybody coming and checking and all that. But it was really fun. Yeah. And yeah, we look forward to new challenges as usual. I mean, rather than me spending time on a presentation, I could sort of answer any questions, if questions, or if, whatever thoughts or something like that.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Does anybody have any questions to start out about either what Sanjay does or the situation specifically about the pandemic? Hannah.
Yeah, I did want to ask, you mentioned a couple times about the policing of
Yes.
your lockdown. So
Yes.
what would happen to people who violated the
Yeah,
lockdown
most of the time they would be beaten up, or they would be arrested and put into jail, but mostly beaten up. And our observation was, people who had houses, people who were safe, people who had savings and all that, why the hell would they come out of the house? People who really had nothing, like say migrants, for example. They had nothing. They had, the only thing that they wanted to do was go back home. And I always feel that, it could have been done in a more sensitive manner. I mean, even today, in my city, the curfew comes in at 12 o'clock. It used to be 9 o'clock. Now, last 15 days, they have moved it to 12 o'clock. But I think it will come back to 9 o'clock because, again, with the political rallies and, we had a cricket match, and because the government is the center and the state government is the same, so they had allowed crowds to come in. I also pity the citizens because they really don't understand. If I fall sick, I'm on my own. I'm on my own, But if a politician falls sick, then he's taken care of. People don't understand this. This is a very simple, common sense thing, and people don't understand. I really don't understand. I mean, so these are they're really brutally beaten up. My neighbor was beaten up. Poor fellow had to go to the hospital for some medicine and all that. But because, again, I'm saying he was privileged. He could he could take the fight right up till the top, and whatever, get that satisfaction that he punished somebody. But beyond that, it was really stringent. There were reasons behind it, and we generally feel that it was a clueless kind of, more of grandstanding and all that. There was nothing. I mean, tell me, if you're looking at it from a military point of view, or if you're looking at it from a common sense point of view, nobody will screw up their supply lines. Nobody. Even in your own house, if you have to lock up yourself, you will not screw up your supply lines. Here, everything is closed. And in India, trains are a huge transport systems. I mean, most of the population, like say 70, 80% of the population, uses trains. And if you close down trains without, I mean, it was what? We were given 4 hours. I mean, can you imagine 4 hours? I really don't know who takes these. I mean, we know here like what is happening. It is really very sad. So yeah,
Thank you
that's
so
that's
much.
where I lost faith in God. I mean, not that I had great faith. I mean, not that I was a really religious person. Thankfully, my parents had taught us to live a life rather than, get into all this thing. But whoever is believing in God, please pray to God that, I mean, you cannot be blind. I mean, I'm not talking about 1,000 people. I'm talking about millions. I mean, people who walk. I, I- I've done it once. I remember maybe 20 years ago, I was at my in-laws' place in Gujarat on the seacoast, and there was this whole rumor that there was a gas leak and all that. So we already had a gas leak in Bhopal where lots of people had died. I remember that time, sort of being agitated and trying to tell my in-laws that since we have a car, let's run away from here, and we did it. Now, you can imagine if I could do it just because I had a privilege. These are people who wanted to walk. I've met a few, and you can't even hear their stories. I mean, it's halfway through, like you have to just walk away because it's very disheartening. And then I actually wanted to not quit my work, but try and do something very different. I just turned 60 in December, so this was the year that I really wanted to. I've done like 40 years of work, and I said, okay, let's now. My children are now away. My son is in Toronto. My daughter is now, she'll be finishing her post graduation. She'll be going off on her own. So my wife is also now, we've like exhausted our energies in trying to do this. And we wanted to do something very small and more in our control. But this pandemic has changed that idea to, at least for next 5 years, I want to really sort of pay back my guilt, if you want to call it. Yeah. Because, yeah, from a personal point of view, I did help a lot of people who I know I'm in contact with. I've worked all these years, and this was the time they would call, and what they would ask for was a little money so that they could buy food, and whatever I had, even bit of my savings, I gave it because I said that, okay, for me, I will be able to get stuff. But, these are people who cannot survive beyond this point at this moment. And then that's the best way to even, sort of, what you can say, cool your soul, if you want to call it. Yeah. I was just telling my wife, and we were both discussing this. The earthquake was much better in 2001, because at least, yes, we all survived. This is our second life, if you want to call it. But there was no restriction. We could immediately go and start helping, whatever way we could go. I mean, this was the time when you couldn't get out of my colony, like, unless you have a permission where you want to buy essentials, which is. And I know, because every day I think I feed at least 4 or 5 people. I know so many poor who live on the footpaths around this colony, and every day when I go for my walk, I ask them, and stuff like that. And I couldn't reach any of them, but yeah, they survived. Probably somebody reached them. So, yeah. But that is the sad part of this whole pandemic. I mean, the virus. The other thing that was very interesting. So during the lockdown, I would call up all my leaders, and we would talk at length on the science of it, rather than because as women, I don't know about your country, but in India, women always get influenced by nonsense. So okay, it's like so many unscientific things that they would discuss and talk to me, and so I would only say that there are only 3 things at this moment: wear a mask, wash your hands if you get water, don't go out of your house if it's okay with you. And see, even like say messaging in your country, social distancing would mean something different. In my country, social distancing, we are anyway experts at social distancing. So these are all sad things that not that everybody sort of understands these, but I to be very honest, I'm still I get very upset about it simply because I couldn't do much at that particular time, which was very critical.
I really
Sanjay, oh,
taken the time to talk to us about this because I know it can't be easy. It's not easy to listen to, so it can't be easy to speak about it. But it's good to know, I guess, and I hope that maybe our knowing, we can help bear some of that burden of your memory with you.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, I was so happy that this thing happened, because these are things. I mean, at the most I can talk to my wife or a few friends who understand this whole thing. But they are also saying move on. But it's not easy to move on. I mean, most of my friends are not even in this sector, but they are at least sensible people. But if you're in the sector and you have to face it every single day. But yeah, I always take positives from it, that all my leaders now are sort of they've really taken charge of their own groups, and they only talk science, they believe in masks, stuff like that, and which is a happy sign, and they want to do something beyond whatever is happening. So yeah, that is what keeps you motivated. Otherwise there is nothing. And of course, the children that I worked with during making those puppets, it was so much fun, because many a time they would come and say, can we do this? And I would always say, yeah, go ahead, do it. I mean, maybe this is what I did. Maybe you have a different idea. And that was fun. That was really, really fun, because it sort of took away a lot of pain from me. That was more important.
that's a so Larry has a question in the chat. For those of you who don't know, Larry is also a puppeteer and opera, but just got his first shot today. So he's dealing with some stuff and not on video, but he has a question in the chat. How has your puppetry work throughout your life influenced the way you work with people and the work you're doing now?
Difficult question, but I have been toying with this idea of coming up with see, puppetry has always been there since '86, and most of the time I used to sort of teach people how to make puppets, and we used to do a lot of glove puppets. I'll be very honest, and that's what I learned, and that's what I taught people. It's only when I came to O'Neill I realized there's something called tabletop, and there's something called shadow puppets. And of course I'd seen shadow puppets, but it was something that I couldn't do it. You need to be an artist. But then O'Neill really opened my eyes and all that. So I came back and I started teaching people tabletops. Of course, nothing like what you could present at O'Neill, but this is to be fun, because they then the puppetry that I use is not as a performance or as an art. The puppetry that I use is a channel to get into their minds, and I always have believed this, and I always still believe that it's they who can find the solutions. I can just point out. My role is to question. Why do you do this? Why do you want to spend for the marriage 600,000 rupees? Why do you want to do it? Why don't you buy 2 cows instead of that? And stuff like that. And then you try and find out what the solution is with them, because if I give the solution, I mean, it's not going to work. That's very clear. So puppetry helps. The one that I did at 2011, remember, Hannah? That itself is a questioning thing, because that also goes against a lot of beliefs, because we believe the god of death. We don't have temples for god of death. Nobody has temples for god of death. But here I am trying to create a temple of god of death, simply because whenever you meet women, we have a saying here, normally women will say, instead of this bloody life, it's better to die. And then she'll laugh, and she'll go and get a cup of tea, but that sentence is something that always sort of happens, and then you question that very sentence, and yeah, women come up with good solutions. This grain bank thing was their idea, not my idea. I had read it somewhere, and I just threw it there, and they say, and then they worked it out themselves. So, which is brilliant as far as I'm concerned. I have never taken credit for anything. I mean, it's the women who take the credit. I mean, it's their job. Even for the goats project, I remember I'd gone there for 2 days, and after the third day, the last day meeting, and the women just got up and said, keep all your ideas, and I would throw ideas and all that just to test them. They say, keep all your ideas, to yourself. We want goats, and these are expensive goats, and so we want goats. So if you can do loans for the goats, fine. Otherwise, have your dinner and literally fuck off. Like, you're not interested. And the local guy was so upset. I said, no, I'm very happy that they know what they want, because then and then they will be able to do it. It's not easy. You and I can have brilliant ideas, but how does it matter? No, right?
Yeah, I love that connection between problem solving in puppetry and problem solving, and also I mean, I've always believed that there's so much that's innate in puppetry that when people you teach puppetry, you're teaching teamwork, you're teaching expression, you're teaching presence. There's so much that is, and problem solving is just it. I mean, puppeteers are some of the best problem solvers I know, because it's like, what does it have to do, and how do I get this thing to do that? And I love that connection. Something that I remember you talking about at the O'Neill was about the sanitation and the toilets, and that struck me because you can tell everyone what I'm talking about real quick, but it's the idea that something that we take so for granted, like we walk a few steps over to our toilet, is something that is not everyone has, and that it creates incredible danger for people, and how this situation must affect that more.
For our work, a functional toilet is a non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable thing. So the first loan, if she doesn't have a toilet, will help her build a toilet. Building a toilet is like heaven. Okay, if you look at from a woman's perspective, she wakes up at around 4:30 and she sleeps around 10:30, 11 in the night. In between, she has no point of rest. Now, in that also, if she has to go like a kilometer or two, and she can't go during the day, because I don't know why the Indian society has put all our, everything has to do with the woman. So she's supposed to take care of the self-respect of the family and all that. Okay, I don't know why. Anyways, so she has to go during the dark, and then if she has to go during the dark, she doesn't go very far off, and there are lots of problems. I know women who don't eat in the evening because they don't have a toilet, and if they eat, then they have to go in the night, and then where will they go? So they don't eat in the evening. So if you really see on this side the physical aspect, on the health aspect, you have stomach aches, back aches, headaches. Then you have poor menstrual hygiene, and it starts going into that. Then because you don't eat so much, you get into anemia, and the workload doesn't go down. It's madness. So when I was trying to set up this company, and I had this angel funder, she is now in Vancouver, and I told her, I said, look, if we don't do this, let's not talk about business, because most of the people will say, oh, we'll give her a business loan, she'll build her business, and then she'll build. I said, if she wanted to do that, she would have done it long time back. It's not that. The control of the money has to be with her, and this is how we do it. So I said, if you agree to that, then I'm ready to, set this up and, do it. Otherwise, I'm not interested now. And I will not go along with that. And she readily agreed, because I convinced her. I said, this is how it is. And so for us, that's a non-negotiable thing. And women have, look, I'm not saying that they're talking about their own health and all that, but now, because their daughters are coming back home and saying that, so-and-so is chasing me, so-and-so man is standing when I go out to, and that fear is what is driving, that's okay for me. Health will come later on, because health doesn't come, immediately. People don't see that here or anywhere else. It's like, talking to a smoker, No, I mean, he can give you 10,000 justifications why he's doing it. So that's how it is. And then the second loan is more of business, because then she's more productive, she's more healthier. I'm not saying healthy, but she's more healthier, and she has a little more time. And then that makes more sense. And that's how we progress.
the whole idea of you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of that. Health
Absolutely.
is the number one thing,
Yeah.
or being stable in that
Yeah.
and safe is the most important. I know we've gone over. Oh no, it was 8:30. It was 8:30 to 9:30. Okay, great. We haven't gone over anything. I'm not gonna like call on people if anybody has. Oh, Hana in the chat. You want me to read it? I'll read it. Hana says, how can we best support Shanti Life in your efforts from the US?
Difficult question at the moment. See, we do depend a lot on donations, and that's what our founder, like Sheetal Walsh, she used to be in San Francisco. And that's where I visited in 2018, and sadly I fell ill there, and I couldn't do anything for 2 weeks. But now she's moved to Vancouver, so that's her job. But yeah, we have a charity in US, also registered charity in US, and one is, I'm not saying donation, but if you could find people who really want to donate, it doesn't cost. It's like, for $300 you can have a woman build a toilet, and that's for life. And that's not just her, it's also for her family. So, or a small $200 thing, which I don't know how much a pizza costs there, but say 2 pizzas or 3 pizzas could bring a huge change in our life. So that is one way of doing it. And also talking about our own organization, maybe just talking about it, maybe somebody has an idea. And the other thing is, we would also love to have support in terms of, if you are good at social media. I really can't find time and really do it. So somebody has time, they can help out. We would look at that. Or if you have any ideas of puppetry, you could pass them on to me, and then I could sort of, like, recently I have a friend who makes these handmade stuff. So he started, it's called Ellie Connection on Facebook, and he makes these mobile holders, and nowadays you needed a key to sort of open the lift door and stuff like that. He's made all that from wood, and it's all handmade. And I'd gone to meet him recently, and he has all this waste, and I picked up that waste, and I started playing with it, and I had a story with that waste. So I've got it here, and I'm still building the story and all that. So these are all odd shapes, and you can sort of use the shape in a way where you can tell a story. And I'm going to have 1 or 2 stories ready, and then go to the nearby slum and try it out with the children. How they come up with that idea or something like that. How do they play with it? So those are ideas where and there are ideas where you could help. That would be wonderful.
Olivia, do you want me to read what you wrote, or would you like to? We can't hear you. You're muted, Olivia. If you want me to read it, then thumbs up. Okay. So Olivia says, hello, Sanjay, Hana, and everyone. Many thanks, Sanjay, for sharing your impressions. I'm inspired by your handling of life in your area. You are doing very fine things. So proud of you. My parents were refugees across Asia during World War II. Their stories utterly inspired me. Can you tell us in writing the name of your region where the toilets, etc., are needed? Thank you.
Can I copy and paste that name somehow and save it?
Yeah, sure.
How would I do that?
I'll text you, Olivia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, I'm going to have to go to bed or I'll turn into a pumpkin. So I have to say goodbye. am so glad for this opportunity to hear about all this and see you guys almost in person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish we could talk more, and I do have ideas from a different point of view of not art, about puppetry.
Sure.
But
Sure.
maybe we can organize something to talk about things like this, and just keep hanging in there, Sanjay. You can't change everything, but
Yeah.
somehow people get through horrible and worse things.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, they do, and don't take it all on yourself, or try to make it into something logical that God should have solved. Just relax and go with the flow. And you're doing a great job. And
Thank you.
Hannah, I hope we can talk, Hannah, soon. And Taylor, I haven't gotten to know you. I hope we'll get a chance to meet on FaceTime or in person.
I hope so too. Nice to meet you this way.
Good night, Olivia. I'll try to give you a call next week.
Great, wonderful. If you could text me that name.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye.
Night, Olivia.
Bye.
Bye.
Olivia had a good point in the chat. She said that, you know, what you were speaking of with the refugee situation brought up memories for her of
Mhm.
her ancestors coping with being refugees in World War II.
Yeah.
She's a very devout Jewish woman.
Oh, yeah.
My people, the Cherokee, of course, were forced to walk across the country. And as a young person, those stories were drilled into me, the individual stories of that horror. And as you were speaking, I felt that pain again. And I'm just so sorry that you are living that in this moment. But I'm
Yeah,
so glad that you are
yeah.
dealing with it by giving back.
Yeah. That's the best way to do it, I mean, because that is something within your control, and you can do it. So that's the best way.
Yeah.
And I always feel, giving money and all that is okay, but many a times just giving time is also important. Just like a lot of friends, I tell them, please, stop using your cars. Walk on the street. If you walk on the street, you'll really know what this country is. Stop there, talk to them. I know it's very shameful, but what is wrong in talking to a man sitting on the footpath? He's not going to come and sit in your car and come home. No, he's not going to do. But talk to him. Find out what he's doing. Find out what. If you guys are interested, I did a story about. We have these school vans. These small school vans, taxi vans that ferry small children to schools and all that. So now it's because the schools were closed. He had no other option but to come on the footpath and sell T-shirts and all that. And I was intrigued because, as I said, when you walk on the street, you don't find a school van selling T-shirts. No, never. I've never seen that. So you stop and say, how come? And he said, look, schools are closed. I need to feed my family. And this is the best option I had at this moment in time. And then you start talking to him and find out, what he is. So I've done that story. So if you guys are interested, I can just email it to you. And, it just gives a perspective of a man who, and I respect that man because, he didn't sit there at home and brood. So how do you help him? So you buy stuff from him. Those T-shirts are of poor quality, but you buy them and give it to somebody else. But at least buy them. He also feels that his business is doing something. At least he's spending time there and all that, which is nice. A lot of people have done that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great if you could share that. And if anybody here wants a copy, you can put your email in the chat and I'll send it.
Yeah, I can send it to you, Taylor, and then you can sort of, whoever wants it.
That would be great. Yeah, stories are really important. A lot of times it feels like being an artist is a selfish thing or whatever, but I mean, we're the ones who share other people's experience. And that's really, really key to being a human in the same boat with all the other humans in the world.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I think, Taylor, you have a job here. You should, just send one thank you email to everybody. So everybody's emails are there. And then I can share if whoever wants. Our stories, I have lots of stories. The only problem is, when I speak in English, it is a learned language. It's not my language. My local languages has a lot of sounds and clicks and facial expressions. I remember doing my 2016 performance, and it was based on a widow who was sitting there, and I did a what a wives, so a widow who's married off and all. So for us in India, if you have a photograph with a garland and a lamp, you don't have to say anything. But in English, I have to explain.
Right.
so that's how it is. I mean, I can speak and write very well, but I operate like, I remember in 2011 also, I used to sleep away, doing that participant piece. I said, yes, I will do, but I used to sleep away. And Robert was my mentor. He came to my room. He said, what the hell are you doing? Why are you sleeping? I said, I don't want to do it. He said, why? I said, no. I said, nah, English doesn't work for me. So he said, you speak so well. And I said, no, English doesn't work for me. This is not my story. This is like a story from my country. And, so he said, who's stopping you? Do it in your language. And I was so comfortable after that because, then because my language many a times doesn't have to really say a lot of things, just 2-3 words, and, it sort of encompasses maybe 2-3 pages. But in 16, then I did it in English simply because, it was too much of a painful thing,
Yeah, that the translation is really.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It's so interesting. So we'll just have to learn your language, maybe. What you said that most people speak 4 languages?
At least in my house, so I come from Maharashtra, so that's a neighboring state. So Marathi is the state language. So that's my mother tongue. My state speaks Gujarati. So Gujarati, I learned Gujarati. So Marathi also, I can speak dialects as well as the main language. Gujarati also, I can speak the main, those pure kind of language. But it's more of dialects that as you go around the regions. For us, every 10 kilometers, the language words change. I mean, even if it is Gujarati, the language and the words. I can speak Hindi because that's the so-called national language, but that's not so. But I only work in states that I know the language, because for us, language is very important. I will never be able to work in south of India because Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, it's like French and Greek and German for me. So, and English, of course, because we studied in a English convent medium school. But if you give us a choice, if I have to write something like, say, a story or like do a puppet performance, I would rather do it in my languages because it gives me a huge amount of confidence, and there are a lot of emotions that we cannot express in English. English is a very dry language. It's a very dry language. It really doesn't. It's like you and I. Whereas for us, it's so sarcastic the way even if we respect somebody. I mean, if the language is with respect, but there's so much of sarcasm in it if you have to put it there. So yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, language really forms the way that people think too. So it's interesting that you say our language is very dry. I'm curious about what that means about us.
No, not about you guys. I mean, you guys chose English. But if you really look at US, I mean, there's so many other languages floating around. So it's not that. And I can for sure tell you that, I've not visited a lot of Indians because I don't want to come to US and visit Indians. That's not the goal. I would rather go to an American family and see how they live and stuff like that. But yeah, all Indians in their own houses, they speak their own mother tongue, except for the children who are born in the US. They like, say, my cousin's children don't know the mother tongue. They only speak English. But the parents still speak. So they would be sitting there and have no clue what we are talking about. But they know that it's the common language that the parents came with.
Yeah, that's a whole different long conversation too. I had a conversation with my dad about that, and he he came over when from the Philippines when he might even be on this call. I don't know if he can hear me. When he was 4, and then talks about the difference between, his parents and then them growing up in America and also not being able to speak the language after a few months. So we could have a whole nother Zoom just on that, about language and how it forms our
Sure.
our brains and ourselves. But
even perspectives, like,
yeah.
I still remember, I don't know which one was that. I think 15 is when they had these new cottages and all that. In 15 we had the new cottages, right?
The new say it one more time?
At the O'Neill. At the O'Neill, the new cottages that they came up in 15, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I remember once, I think Pam or somebody asked me that, did you have a bath? I said, yes, of course I had a bath. I cannot operate without a bath. And they said, did you get hot water? I said, no, there was no hot water. There's cold water. It's okay, but once in a while. But I wanted a bath. Bath was more important. She said, no, somebody has come and, made a huge hue and cry about not having hot water. And I said, okay, send him with me. I mean, there's no water most of the time. So for me, cold water or hot water, there is water in the shower. I mean, that's more than enough. So maybe that's how, we are also. I'm not saying that what that person did was right or wrong. I'm just saying that, how much can we sort of, adjust. And we are like masters at that. Masters at that. I can tell you, yeah. You're masters at adjusting.
Cherokee has, as a language, a tense. That means I am speaking to everyone except you. Languages have so many different ways of expressing themselves.
Oh, yeah.
English does not. And it's fascinating. I'm so curious about what, Gujarati and the other.
Oh, yeah, sure. We should have one session. I'll sort of bring in examples of, what it would look like in English and, how we say it in our own language. I'll give you a very small example. So if I have to, like we're sitting in friends and somebody says something and, we don't agree to, we'll just say, chal se, chal. That's how we'll say. But in English, you see, I don't agree with you, blah, blah, blah. Hey, no. So the way I would say chal away, I'll say it in so many ways, which will say, okay, I agree partly, I don't agree, I just don't agree, nonsense, I just don't agree kind of thing. I mean, that's the same word, so which is fascinating. And that's why I don't work in states which I don't know the language, because you don't get the nuance. You see, you can't catch the nuance. And in India, women normally don't speak. So you have to also understand those silences. It's a whole different, I'm not saying that, I'm an expert at that, but 60% I can understand what's going on.
Yeah, that's madness. A reminder, just like the idea that made me so interested in what you do, about like other people's experiences are completely different than ours, and we take certain things just for granted, that's like that we have a toilet and other people don't. We take for granted that like our brains think this way and other people's think this way.
Yeah.
And it's just a different expression. But Sanjay, thank you so much for sharing.
This really feels lighter. And I mean, I know most of you, so it feels very light, to sort of at least reveal something which is there in my heart. It'll always be there in my heart, but yeah.
Well, good. Anytime that you want to share more, let me know, and I'll grab some more people, because there are a lot of people who couldn't make it, who would love to hear.
Thank you, Sanjay. It was very nice meeting you and listening to your story. It was very, very nice.
Yeah. All I can say is I'm not a typical Indian. My parents taught us to be very, very practical. So for us, religion and, prayers and, rituals and all that makes sense. So, I mean, if you meet some other Indian, you might get a lot of these kind of insights about what religion does to them. That's perfect. So I'll send you the stories and hope you enjoy them. They also
Very
have
much.
better context of it.
Yeah, I'll start an email chain too, where I'll share it with everyone, and so we can be connected too.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. And I'll post a link to this. Welcome. I'll post a link to this in the group and in the email as well. So if you want to watch it again and relive this evening, you may. All right. Good night,
Bye.
everybody. And
Good night. Thank you.